Cineverse.
Hello, welcome to Cineverse, a weekly podcast discussing films in and out of the cinema. My name is Anthony Renteria.
And I'm David.
And this week on episode 39, we are discussing The Father, directed by Florian Zeller and written by Christopher Hampton and Florian Zeller. And here's the synopsis. A man refuses all assistance from his daughter as he ages. As he tries to make sense of his changing circumstances, he begins to doubt his loved ones, his own mind, and even the fabric of his reality. All right, so before we start, we are going to keep this very vague and attempt to not spoil anything for anyone who is interested in this film. Or if you're like me, you didn't know anything about this film, and all you knew was Anthony Hopkins won the Oscar for Best Actor last year.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my other point, is that we are considering this a 2021 release film because it came out in February of 21. So the Oscars, fuck them.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan.
To start out, I would like to hear your initial impressions of the film and the experience that you had.
Man. Oh, man. Trying to keep it vague is hard, but I'll just say, first of all, I think I just found out today when I was looking up stuff for it that Anthony Hopkins won the Oscar for it. I didn't know that. I didn't know that before I watched it, or even until today, after the second time watching it. But he definitely deserves it. And he just knocks it out of the park. Just overall, just like a super great, just like actors movie. Just like all the actors, just a great solid cast of actors that all just giving it their all in their roles. And so if you just really like, I'm trying to think, first, I recommend it to everyone, but like if you're that a drama nerd like me that just likes those really nice drama movies with just fine actors, just doing their best, it's a good movie for you. The editing of this movie obviously plays a big part, and it was super interesting the way that it was used in this movie, which we can talk more in the spoilers about how that was done. But I think it's crazy that once again, we've done a lot of these movies lately where it's the first time directorial debut of this director, Florian Zeller.
Yep.
He's a famous novelist and playwright, French, but this is his first movie, and he adapted his play into this movie with the help of another writer. But because it's obviously really solid writing and dialogue. And so that's another reason to see this movie. It was just interesting, the process of it, how it came to be. And what's weird? I just learned this today too. There's another movie that was an adaptation of this that came out in 2015. That's a French movie called Florida. And I watched the trailer, and it looks like it was more going for comedy, which I don't know if the original play was more lighthearted, but this movie is definitely not. There's some funny moments. Anthony Hopkins is just adorable and entertaining as always.
Yeah.
But mostly it's a downer. I for sure, even watching it the second time today, I teared up a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, that watching it, I already know what's going to happen, but it still hit me the same way. So it's there's so much to say about it. Even the set design, which I don't pay attention to very often in movies, plays a big role in this movie. I feel like there's so much more to talk about once we get into spoilers, but what do you want to say about it?
Yeah, so my initial impressions went into this film blind. I think if you haven't seen the trailer, I haven't seen the trailer, but I would recommend probably just not watching it. Mm-hmm. I feel like this is one of those experiences that the less you know, the better the outcome will be, because it becomes a discovery process. And I feel like the whole film is anchored strongly in a perspective So it's like you, as the viewer, get to experience the perspective of the film firsthand, fresh, and just not knowing anything really like sets the stage wonderfully. Like for me, like it was just shocking the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
and I just think it's like an amazing accomplishment of cinema, of like what films can do and portray, and like the sensoriness that this film accomplishes with with the visuals, with the editing, with the sound design, with the music, the score, the cinematography, the performances, the directing. I mean, like literally every aspect of this film nails everything, just like period. But then it nails it in a way that amplifies and enhances the message of the film or the perspective of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just absurd and insane to me that a first time director can literally hit every single marker. and and then like you, if you even try to scrutinize it or like dissect it or analyze it, you end up receiving more information from the film itself. Like it's like peeling an onion, and just every peel is like immaculate, and it's like stunning. Like it's and then the movie is extremely short in comparison to like today's average film length. I think it's like an hour and 36 minutes,
Yeah.
and it was so weird because like when this film ended, I just immediately wanted to. I don't know, like it felt like I didn't breathe the whole time. Like it reminds me of the
Yeah.
beginning of Annette when they have that song and they're like, "Take a breath because you might not take a breath. You might be breathless the whole
Oh
film."
yeah, yeah.
Like if you were to play that at the beginning of this movie, that cheesy horrible song, this movie would have still been an amazing accomplishment, and I would have been like, "Yeah, that's accurate," because I felt breathless. I felt like my heart was aching every second, but
Oof, yeah.
also the entertainment, and it's such an insane film. I think anyone who likes drama, like any kind of dramatic film, or how you mentioned the performances. I mean, if you like films, period, like I don't understand. Like, I think anyone could watch this movie and get something out of it, even if they think it's like, because like I was looking at some reviews and I was listening to some podcast, and there was a lot of, well, there was a handful of critics that were like, "Oh, it's like a one trick pony,
Oh
and
wow.
I don't think it had any depth and blah blah blah."
What?
And even if you were to get that aspect of it's a one trick pony or whatever, it's still the best one trick pony of what it's trying to do, and it accomplishes. So
Yeah.
like, I literally don't see anyone disliking the film. So it is a heavy recommendation to everyone.
It's one of those, I don't know if you ever get this feeling when you're watching a really good movie that uh, I distinctly remember the scene that I was, maybe like three-fourths of the way through the movie where I was like, I was like waiting for it to do something that kind of messed up the movie. Like
Yeah.
I was waiting for something to happen that would make me think less of it, or maybe they would go too far in some direction, or and it
Yeah.
would just or yeah, but it never happened, and I was like, it's such a great feeling, like when you when you watch a whole movie and nothing ever comes up where you're like, oh man, I wish they hadn't done that, or oh god, like they ruined it, nothing like that ever happened. So it's like I had that feeling. That is a rare good feeling to have.
Which is so strange for an adaptation. Like I feel like most adaptations bloat, like they cut certain aspects and then they bloat in like worthless aspects. And I feel like this. I don't know anything about the play, but this film feels so thin. Like it just feels like only the scenes that you need to see to understand or to not understand, and only the lines and moments that are of value to this perspective and to the film. And it feels like all the fat was just trimmed off.
Yeah,
And it's just like,
I read that they did that, like the directors and writer, like when he was talking with the other writer, like that's what they worked on, was like paring down the dialogue, because apparently the play, obviously the play's very dialogue heavy. So that was one thing they actually said that they worked on. And yeah, I agree with you. Like that's what it feels like. That there's no wasted scene, there's no wasted dialogue. Like it's all cohesive.
Yeah. And the play thing, like, it's strange because I didn't think about it being a play until like I rewatched it the second time and I saw the tag at the beginning, and then I was like, oh my god, that's a play, and like it makes sense that it's based on a play. But even watching the film, like, it doesn't feel like those generic adaptations of plays where it's just the insane amount of dialogue that's very like theatrical. Like I don't know if
Yeah.
it's the writing is just that perfect, but I also think it's the performances from Anthony Hopkins, Olivia Colman, and the other cast that like they just all feel so real, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like off-putting how real they perform. Like even Anthony Hopkins, I was like, man, that like for some reason subconsciously I was like, man, that's how he moves in real life, and that's how his speech pattern is. Like I
Yeah.
thought he was just reading dialogue. Like I because I'm unaware of how he actually is in this age.
Right.
And then like I went onto his Twitter, which he has a Twitter that, that he posts like every day, like he's just doing whatever, like swimming and horse riding and stuff. And he's a very like he is the opposite of what this performance is.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's just like, oh my god, it's almost scary. It's like I forgot his name, the guy who's won like 3 Oscars, and he was in like There Will Be Blood.
Oh God, now you're making me blank on it, even though I should know
Yeah.
that. Oh shit, what are we? Are we a movie podcast? Okay, Daniel Day Lewis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Daniel. Yeah, he's at that caliber of, and it's so weird because I know Anthony Hopkins is like probably top actors of all time,
yeah,
but just I haven't seen one of his movies in so long since like Silence of the Lambs. I kind of forgot, and to see him again, and just me fully believe that it's just him as this character, and it's amazing.
yeah. There were so many little touches, like little nice touches, that I wonder if they were in the script or if he just did them, but just like that made it just so much more realistic. Like that he didn't have to do, but it's just like almost every scene has something, some little thing that he does without talking that just like adds to his character in some
Yeah.
way. So yeah.
And then just briefly, I want to talk about the cinematography of the film. I really loved the visuals, and this is like one of the first digital films that I don't think would have been better in film. Like I think the 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 digitalness of the image really helped
Hmm.
sell like a very cold and clinical. Like it felt more like a like it eased me into the perspective of the film way better because of its coldness and its like how clean and sharp it was.
Mm, I can
Like
see that. Yeah.
it felt more like a documentary. How you were saying like you believe digital is more like reality, and then I'm always saying like I like film because it feels more real because it's like surreal or like
Mm-hmm.
fantasy.
Yeah.
And but in this film, like I can understand like why the digital palette would be more interesting than like the grain in the film and stuff. Like I don't think
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
would have helped if it had that
Yeah. I agree.
dirtiness. But yeah, so I think we've kind of covered everything. You should watch this film.
Yes, for
Let's
sure.
let's get into our ratings. What would you rate this out of 10?
Okay, the first time I saw it, it was an 8 out of 10 because I'm like, all right, I would watch it again. It's excellent in like so many ways. But then I watched it again today, and I'm just like, I think the reason that I bumped it up to a 9 out of 10 to me is just the added like, not only is it an excellent film in like almost every aspect, but it's also about something that I feel like is actually important, like the con or the subject of the movie like is something that I feel like everyone should know about, and like everyone should experience from this perspective. You know what I mean? So it's one of those that I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, this feels like actually like an important movie. So I bumped it up to a 9 out of 10. And the only reason that
Wow.
it's not a 10 out of 10, which might reveal something about my rating system that's a little biased, but
Mm-hmm.
the visual aspect, like, for some reason, when I picture my 10 out of 10 in my head, when I picture like the best of the best movies, I picture movies that are visually stimulating on their own. And for some reason, I wouldn't say that this movie was visually stimulating on its own. Like, you couldn't watch this movie on mute and it feels significant. So that's the only reason that I'm withholding a 10 out of 10 from this one. But
I, I would argue that maybe in the spoilers we can get into it, but there was a couple shots that I found very beautiful. It is very minimal and sparse imagery though. So I
yeah,
get
and
what you're saying.
just because films are, to me, obviously it's like it's the visual medium, so I'm
Yeah.
like, but still, no reason not to see it.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. This is officially your highest score on
Yeah,
Cineverm.
that's
Is a
true.
9 out of 10. Wow.
That is true.
Well, my rating, as I assume everyone can predict, is a flawless, masterful 10 out of 10,
Oh
which
yeah,
is not a perfect film, but I feel like this film has perfected what it set out to do. And like you said, like this film is important, and we'll get into that into the spoilers, but it's insane because I've seen the ideas of this film in other films, and they're played as jokes or they're played from a different perspective, and you don't really think about it or care about it. And then just to see this and it be so tragic and it be so haunting and such a visceral experience and enlightening. I feel like I think different now.
yeah,
Like when if I ever encounter this situation or a person in this situation, like I will not immediately do what some of these other characters do
yeah,
because it's hard to wrap your head around, and it proves like why cinema is such a great art form. Because I mean, I imagine the play is good, but I cannot imagine how you pull this off in a play and
yeah,
have the same impact that this film had, which is kind of like mind-boggling. Like I kind of want to figure out like what they did in the play to have the same effect that this film is having, because I don't see any other medium accomplishing what this film can accomplish with edits, with the visuals, with sound design, and with the writing and performances.
yeah. And the close-ups, like in this movie, just
Yeah.
facial expressions are so important in this movie that I was thinking that as well. Like, I don't know how they could accomplish this from a stage. You just can't get the same nuance from it. Yeah.
Yeah. And interestingly, I have never seen a play.
Oh well.
Like I've never seen like a big production play.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Have you ever seen a play?
Yeah, I've seen like I mean I've seen a lot of high school plays because I did the lights for my high school theater.
Whoa.
So I've seen a lot of plays, and then like I went to my grandma took me to Broadway when I was little, and so I saw a bunch of plays there. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just not the same as movies.
Yeah.
It takes a very special. Yeah, I mean you have to be either super visually over the top, or it
Yeah.
has to be that very dialogue heavy or music, but you couldn't have this kind of this exact, if you took this exact dialogue and everything and put it in a play, like, because I know they changed it a lot from what the actual play is.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't work for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, that concludes our review portion of The Father. If you don't want to be spoiled, which I highly recommend, just watch the movie. Don't just stop the podcast now.
Yeah.
And while you do that, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, or comment on what you thought about the film or our takes on it. And you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or email us at cineverm@yahoo.com. And you can check out our snazzy website at cineverm.com. But yes, stop listening now. And now spoilers. So,
Yeah. What
I don't even.
I mean, I when I watched it the second time, I
Yeah.
purposely, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna try. Maybe we could start here. Like, I was like, I'm gonna try to figure out what the actual timeline of this movie is, because obviously
Okay.
it's we're not gonna go through. We don't have to go through the whole thing point by point, but
No, yeah, let's go through the whole thing because I feel like that's what brought me the biggest questions, and then we can when there's a scene that has a moment that we enjoyed in a different aspect, like visually or music, then we can. But I
yeah,
think that's smart because I had one big question that I kept trying to wrap my head around, and the second time I watched it, I got more confused.
yeah, me
So,
too. I wonder if it's the same thing. What is the question? Go ahead, or do you want to?
oh, one thing I wanted to say in this review that I just forgot was that I think I was gonna ask you a joke question that was, how many times? All right, when Christopher Nolan watched this movie, how many orgasms did he have?
Yeah, yeah, because this is like what he wants to do, but
Yeah, like it's
unfortunately he can't avoid the guns and the car chases and the ridiculousness of his movies. Oh
like he
god,
just got out Nolaned by a
sure
first
did.
timer.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my god.
it's all about the
Anyways,
writing. Yeah, what was the big question that you had?
oh no, that was the joke question.
Oh,
Oh, the big question about the timeline.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay, so in the beginning of the film, Anne talks to the father and says, I'm going to Paris, and they set up that whole element, right?
yep,
And then he walks into the living room, and the husband is there, but it's being played by the nurse, uh, male character.
yep,
And then they have that interaction or whatever, and then he leaves, and then the daughter comes in. He doesn't recognize the daughter. It's the female nurse, and then he's sitting in the chair, and then the female nurse comes up to him, and he's like rubbing his eyebrow. He's very distressed and sad, and then he's like, your husband, like he's talking about the husband and how he was rude, and then Anne is saying, "What husband? I haven't been married for 5 years." And that part kind of broke my brain because I was like, all right, so is this after, like, what the only logical thing that I came up with was he went into the facility, the nursing facility, and then at some point they got the divorce, and then she picked him back up to go back to the flat.
I
So like
think.
that's 5 years in the future from him being in the facility.
Well, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think the main like the takeaways from that scene were like, which I don't know if I read this somewhere, but it's like the editing in this movie cannot be trusted. Like that's the main thing to watch out for when you're watching this
Yeah.
movie, and even the second time, even when you know what that not gimmick, I don't want to say, but even when you know what that trick is, like it's still you miss it in certain things. And I think in that scene, because you're right, like that's especially confusing because when she walks in the room, she says, Paul says you aren't feeling very well. And then
Yeah.
literally like a minute later in their talking, she's like, what do you mean? We haven't been married in 5 years. It's like, so I feel like every cut, like, cause there were a couple of cuts, I think I rewinded it to check. And there were a couple of, normal cuts, like from one looking at one character's face to another. And I feel like the director, whoever, editor decided like every cut in this movie could be a huge jump in time. that's and
Yeah.
that's like what's really scary about this movie is like literally like every single cut, even ones that seem really insignificant, you could be traveling years in the future, years in the past.
Yeah.
You don't know. But yeah, I think also because he gets the other thing, the setting of this movie is literally it's like the same set, but
Yeah.
it's his flat, it's his daughter's flat, and it's the hospital, the nursing home. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
like one of those the beginning of the conversation is a memory that he had from her flat, and the end of the conversation is a conversation that he had with her when she came to visit him. You know, who knows? But yeah, it's just like you you can't trust the editing in this movie.
Yeah. So for the editing, what I came to grasp, and this is my interpretation, but so it doesn't happen with the edits. The edits are scary, but I think so and there's a part in the film where he is holding on to the the new nurse that reminds him of Lucy, his daughter that's dead, and he's like, "Please don't leave me alone. Like, don't leave the room." And I started cluing in, and there's other parts where he's alone in a room. It's so the time distortions and the like advancement or regressions happen when he is alone. So when someone enters or exits a room, that's when the time, like it could be anyone who walks in, or and when they walk out, they could never come back. And I feel like like on my second rewatch, I had that in the back of my head because I like kind of came up with it at the end of the film.
That's that's a good point. It's scary for him. That would be
Yeah.
You don't know.
And that's why he's always kind of following people around. Like when I was rewatching it, he always is like walking the perimeter of the room, like almost preventing people to leave when he wants them to stay. And yeah, like that's horrifying because it's scary. So, but I guess so you couldn't. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say just like I second time watching it, I was like, there's got to be a way to figure this out. Like I thought there was gonna be some pattern or some once you figure out the trick, like it would make everything make sense, but it really doesn't because there's definitely things like that conversation. Well, I mean, the conversation we just talked about could be an edit. You know, it could be like, okay, every cut could be a jump in time, but then there were certain things like the dinner scene where he walks in on them on his daughter and her husband, I guess, talking about him and how they're going to send him to a home. You know, maybe it's better to send him to a home. Like then he sits down for dinner. They have the dinner. Everything seems very fluid. There isn't like any clear jump. But then when he comes back into the room, it's the same conversation, but slightly, obviously it's like a different take, but it's the exact same conversation. But instead
it's the same exact take and everything.
No, I think it's actually a different take. Like when I watched it this time, I was like, oh, it's like slightly different. I think like the way I think they did two different takes so that it's even more like uncanny. Cause like the second time that there's a slight difference in how they turn to look at him and how they say some of the lines. I'm pretty sure. Oh, and it makes it even more weird. But then, then he instead of going in, he turns around and he leaves and he storms off to his bedroom. So like that's impossible. Like, you know what I mean? Like same conversation, but he did two different things afterwards. So obviously, like there's no way to make sense of that except that his brain is just looping, or I don't know if that's one of the symptoms of like these diseases is that your brain kind of loops memories or something. But yeah, I just feel like you can't. There's another example, which maybe I'll find it later, but where there's a loop. There's a morning scene where he's waking up and he's walking out of his bedroom and she says, good morning, blah, blah, blah. But again, it's like, it's the same thing, but it's two different takes. Like it sounds different, slightly different, but it's like the exact same thing that's happening. So I'm like,
I found all the takes to be exact.
Oh, okay.
The dialogue and the performances.
Okay. I thought they were slightly different, but I don't know.
I think like the only thing that I saw different was the shots themselves, like how they were cut, and the framing. But I thought it was the same. But what's so like in that when he leaves, the time dilation happens when he exits that room. Yeah, and then when he comes back to the room, it's a different time. What I think is happening, I don't know exactly what illness he has, but it's like what I was equating like the loopingness to was like the sense of deja vu. So I think he originally entered and sat down and ate, and then when he left to go to the kitchen to get some more chicken, he came back, he was listening to them. He had deja vu of him initially listening to them before he entered, but he's experiencing it now. But his mind kind of meshed the two memories together,
That
and
makes
almost like
sense.
flip-flop them. And I think that's like, I don't know if that's exactly how this disease, like let's just call it dementia or something, but it was interesting because like it happens with everything. So like the faces of the people he knows are being flip-flop with future people. So I
Yeah.
feel like the entirety of the film is actually playing out on the final day where he's in the nursing home.
Yeah, because there's certain things that he shouldn't know yet when he says them, and
Yeah.
because only later do we see, like, for instance, like the big mystery for me the second time I was watching, I was trying to figure out was like the whole Paris thing, like his one of his daughters. It's kind of unclear. I part of me thought it was the younger daughter. Like I had this whole scenario in my head. I was like, oh, maybe the reason that every time he mentions that the daughter telling him that she's going to Paris because she met a man, and it seems like every time he mentions that to people, like the husband character of his and his daughter, even Anne, like they are confused and they don't know what he's talking about, or they act like he's just making something up. And I was thinking, whoa, maybe that's because Lucy came to him and only told him and then immediately got in an accident. Maybe she was keeping a secret that she was going to run away to Paris with this guy. But then later in the nursing home, like it's definitely Anne that tells him that she's going to Paris, like moving to Paris.
Yeah.
And then the nurse confirms it. The nurse also says, "Oh yeah, like Anne, went to Paris. She's living in Paris now." So that's one of those moments when I realized like we're not really supposed to make sense of this stuff, like, but it could be what you said, like that it's just all we have to just think this is his mind at the end. That's just
Yeah.
looping memories. He thinks he's in the past, a
Yeah.
lot of times, but he's really in the nursing home having conversations with his daughter who comes to visit him and stuff like that. I mean, some of it
The
obviously takes place in the past, but
the other confusing Paris scene is when he goes. Him and Anne are with I guess the doctor that's diagnosing him, and they're like having that little meeting. And then she's asking him like, "How you been?" or whatever, and then he's like, "Good, just trying to stay in my flat." She's about to leave me to go to Paris, and then Anne turns to him and is like, "I'm not going to Paris." And then he's like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "I'm not going to Paris." And he's like, "Well, you need to make up your," like they have that whole interaction.
mm-hmm.
And then the doctor's writing something. And then he's back in the hallway thinking. And then Anne's looking at him all sad. So I'm like, wait, why did she lie to him about the Paris thing if he is going to Paris? Or that could tie into my other theory that it's even way past in the future to where Anne comes back
Okay.
after her divorce, because she was never married before the current husband, is my understanding.
Wait, but they mentioned a James, and I thought that the James was the kind of the timeline I figured from, because I was paying attention the second time to like what all the other characters were saying because I figure they're more reliable. So
Yeah.
like for sure she mentions, or someone does, I think it's her, James, like she was married to James, and then
Mm-hmm.
she was separated from him, and then one of her husbands, because it could be James or it could be the current Paul guy, she's married to for 10 years. So, but then she's separated from one of them for 5 years. So I don't know. I'm sure there's a way to like put it together, but I don't know. Maybe it's not so important, but it's just like, yeah, it just adds to as you're watching it, to the, because you're like, this should be a simple thing, like this pair,
Yeah.
like what's going on. Okay, she's leaving to Paris as a big event or whatever, she's going to live in Paris with a man, and so your brain
Yeah.
sticks on that, but it's like all the other little details and mentions just confuse you further. It's like,
Yeah.
and it's one of those unique things that this movie does, is that's so good, is that it's like using that, the fact that you don't know everything, to get you to feel exactly what the main character is feeling, like the frustration of
Yeah.
and the confusion. It's so good, like it just does it so
And
well.
yeah, so right after I finished watching this movie, like this is one of the, like it maybe happens once a year, like with one film a year. to where a film that I watch changes my perspective of how to approach writing or like how to approach a narrative. And this film did that just with exactly what you are talking about with the perspective. And I've always like thought in my mind, I'm like, God, like why in these big action films, like, you know, like let's say like Tom Cruise or like the Black Widow or whatever, right? Like why do we see her, like we follow her for like 10 minutes of the film, and then like the other hour and a half we're like getting all this plot and dialogue with like external characters, and then like somehow it feels like the main character knows things that we know as a viewer but that she technically shouldn't know. Like how would she know X, Y, and Z, right? And this film kind of proves that I like that like it works, and that it amplifies to such a degree to where it becomes like a powerful mechanism in writing is to focus on a perspective. And like how in this film like everything we know is through the eyes of Anthony, and like that's equally disorienting and horrifying and terrifying, and also like oddly funny, and then exciting. Like it covers the whole spectrum, because you get to like just be inside someone's mind, and then also the information that you're receiving is very limited to what he's experiencing, which makes sense, because if you follow like if you have a story that's character driven, like why would you, what is the point of knowing external information, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just
And
that they use it like it's weird because like when you think about it, you're like, okay, it's not that unique. Like the other example I'm thinking about is like when he walks into, you know, he hears someone and he walks in the living room and there's a man sitting there in the chair, and it's like we don't know who that is because it's a
yeah.
movie, you know, and he doesn't remember who that is even though he should know. And
Yeah.
it's such a simple thing when you like say it out loud, but like when you're watching the movie, you're like, man, that was like so that's so effective. Like that's such an effective way to get you in the character's perspective because you don't know. I guess in a book, you know, like it would say, you know, the man is sitting there. I don't know, like when you think about it, it's not that special, like of a trick, but it's like it works so well in this movie. And then the
Yeah.
changing faces, which have we? I don't know if we mentioned that since we started recording, but
Oh
the
no, yeah, no.
yeah, the that scene. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, when that initial moment happened with Anne coming in, it was just like one of the biggest mind fucks of the year. Like other than Sir Garwin cutting the Green Knight's head off, like it surpassed that, because it's so like that's when I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be a 10 out, like that. It's a 10 out of 10. Like the film could have ended right there, done. It's in the books, but like, and then the way it used that, just like the perspective thing,
It's
like I
really
just
scary too. I don't know why, but it's like really scary. I don't know if it's Anthony Hopkins' face is selling it or the music.
what,
Also, that's the first time that the music kind of comes back in. And
yeah, the
it's
like
like,
sharp
yeah,
violins and strings, and it's like jing, 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 jing.
yeah. Uh,
It
but it is very scary for some reason. You're like, whoa, okay, wait a second.
it almost plays like a home invasion film. Like
Mm-hmm.
it plays like yeah, like you don't feel safe at any
Yeah.
moment or time. And then like you said, like I do think it's the performances. Like it's Anthony Hopkins' face, and then it's also even like the other supporting members in this film. They were all just so amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
like when I first saw that husband, the that's actually the male nurse, I was like, man, that's such a weird character to pick as the husband. Like for some reason he didn't feel like a real person.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then when we saw the real husband, I was like, oh my god, that's so fucking genius. Like that the fake husband feels fake, but his performance is absolutely real and authentic.
I
But
think
it's just
it's
like
I think it's the way he's standing too, or like the way because it's weird because he's always like just kind of standing in the corner of the room, just kind of I don't know.
yeah,
There's something strange about some of his performance, but yeah, and also just his face. I mean, that guy just Mark Gaddis, like his
yeah,
face, he just has that kind of he has a creepy face, like he has a creepy character face. His sneer,
yeah.
you know, it just The only other thing I've seen him in, or that I can think of, is Sherlock, and he just has that. He's Sherlock's brother, and just kind of a slimy. I don't know, like he just has a kind of a slimy appearance. So you're like, oh yeah, like this
Yeah.
guy shouldn't be like if this guy showed up in your apartment, you'd be pretty freaked out too. like, like
Yeah.
what is this guy doing?
And it felt fake. Like, even though that guy was saying, I'm her husband, I was like, there's no way she's married to that guy. Like, it just subconsciously, I didn't believe it. And then when Anne walked in, I was like, that's not Anne, though. Like,
Yeah.
if the film, like, I was thinking, like, while viewing it the first time, I was like, if that's the real Anne and Olivia Colman's the fake Anne, there's no way. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. Like, and it's so interesting because I'm thinking, like, I imagine as a casting director, it's like you have to find someone who does not look like a character, even though,
Yeah.
like, I
Whoever
don't know
did
what it is
this.
about those two actors. They don't fit in that scenario. But then when when we saw the reality that they were the nursing home, the male and female nursing home
Yeah.
nurses, it like immediately felt right. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
of course, like they look exactly like nurses, and it's so weird. Like it's like like I don't know, like I never look at anyone in the real world and think you're a fucking nurse. Like I can just tell it, you know. But for some reason, these two actors, I don't know if it's their performance, like how they're moving, or their like physicality. But there was
Yeah.
something I immediately knew that they were not real.
It almost makes me think like were they thinking that like as actors, or did the director tell them to like just think in your head that you're a nurse, you know, and you're just
Oh,
here, you're just here looking after this guy. I don't know.
yeah,
I mean, the one thing that creepy thing I wanted to bring up at some point, like the thing that really makes it worse, makes everything worse, and is actually one of those things how we were talking about your perspective kind of changes watching this movie, is just whenever they don't answer one of his questions, like a really simple question. Like I understand that in real life, like these characters are probably really tired of, repeatedly answering his really simple questions or whatever.
yeah,
But it's like that just infuriated me. Like after a while, I was like, if they just answered his simple questions, like me as a viewer wouldn't be so confused. He wouldn't be so confused. Everything would
yeah,
be better. But yet, there's so many times that they ignore him. Like especially those two characters. I feel like they ignore his questions, and he has to like repeat himself, and like at certain points he even has to be like, like, hey, I'm talking to you, like
yeah.
to get their attention. And yeah, and my big
Well, I,
takeaway was from this was like, if I ever run into someone with dementia, or have to deal with someone with dementia, like I'm just going to answer all of their questions immediately, just
yeah,
straightforward, just straight up, just tell them everything, because I feel like it,
yeah.
it causes so much more anxiety, just just to constantly not answer his questions.
Yeah. I mean, I loved how that was shown in the film because I
Yeah.
think that's the reality. And it's like just what I'm imagining is it's the frustration because like imagine you have to tell him every day, maybe multiple times a day, that his favorite daughter that he obviously thinks about all the time
Yeah.
died in a horrible accident. You
Yeah.
know, like and then imagine the response, the denial, the anger. It's like, "Oh, you're fucking lying to me. Where is she? Where is she?" You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like at some point you'd be like, is it really worth it just for him to go in his room, listen to music, come back out, and then again say, "Where's Lucy? Like, look at that painting." You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's that the repetition that really grades at people. Which brings me back to, so they were married for 10 years. So he was living in the flat with his daughter and the real husband for 10 years.
I don't think so
Which,
though. Like I don't know, because I feel like the way in the scenes with the husband, I don't know what a particular dialogue, but it's like it seems to like it's new that he moved in there, like, and the husband is just maybe not in every scene. Maybe you're right. Maybe some scenes it's like later on, but I don't know. It just felt to me it felt like he wasn't even there that long. Maybe that's just because of
oh,
the movie, but I don't know, like, because they kept talking like it's almost like he just came there because he had the argument or whatever with his old carer. So he came
what?
there, and they were gonna go to a pair, or they were gonna go on some vacation, but they couldn't because of him. And then they're trying with these. I guess they do. It does say they try with like three or four carers, before the
Yeah.
husband, I guess, is just like, just send him to a nursing home. But
Yeah. My understanding, I think it was at least 3 weeks is one time
oh yeah,
slot. They said it was like
you're right.
your last care 3 weeks. You've been in our flat for 3 weeks.
Oh,
Um,
they say that, yeah, they say that he's been in the room. I remember that's at the end. Like he's been in the nursing home for 3 weeks at the very end of the movie.
oh, okay. I'm getting that confused. Yeah.
The nurse says that. Yeah.
Well, we spoke about a lot of the performances. One, the real husband is
Oh yeah.
like what a
Oh yeah.
amazing, like, again, the casting in this film is just fucking immaculate. Like
Yeah.
like as soon as he showed up, I was like, okay, he's the real husband. And just to see like the piece of shit that he is, and his attitude, and like the way he treats Olivia Colman or Anne's character, Anne, and then the father. Like, what did you think about that character?
Yeah, he was a good. I mean, you have to have. I feel like for this movie with this subject matter, you have to have the character that, you have to have the example of someone that's abusive to people like this, and it's like, but he played it very well, and like that actor, there was the scene where, like one of my favorite scenes in the movie, which there are a lot of, but like the one where he sits down on the couch, Anthony Hopkins and the husband, and he really thinks that the husband is wearing his watch.
Oh my god.
And that stole his watch. That was just perfect. Like there's so many, like in that actor, oh god, what's his name? Rufus Sewell. Like there's so many emotions that go through his face, like during that just short scene, that like at one moment he's like kind of amused at what's happening and that he can't remember certain things, and he's annoyed, and he's even confused, there's just like a lot of like really like micro expressions that happen on his face that I'm just like, oh, this
Yeah.
is so good. Like if you like really really detailed acting, like it's like a full course meal, just that scene of like all his reactions to Anthony Hopkins. And it really does it I don't know if it's just how he's playing it or just his face. That guy's face is kind of villainous to me. So
Yeah.
it's like you can see it from Anthony's perspective, like he is the villain, like of Anthony's universe. And
Yeah.
like it makes sense that it's almost like that scene. I was trying to think, because I'm like, I've seen this kind of scene in a bunch of movies, like where the hero is trying to like outsmart the person who is lying about something, and they're through their wit they're gonna like outsmart the person and make them say something that reveals that they've actually done something bad, like steal the watch. But since that's not the truth, it never happens, and it's just awkward the way he's interrogating him. But it was just a great scene for both of them. But yeah.
Yeah, and speaking about that relationship, what's interesting is that I found interesting on the second viewing is I kept like wondering, like, why does the father have so much resentment and anger towards the daughter? And then I realized on the second viewing that he doesn't, like, the one thing he keeps not being able to remember is the husband character. Like throughout the whole narrative, the husband character is causing a lot of distress and the anxiety and the problems.
That's true. Yeah.
For the trio, but all he remembers is Anne. So like, and that's why he's like, I think she's scheming something. But in reality, the schemer and the person antagonizing him is the husband, but he just doesn't remember. So all he has left is the feeling of being attacked and the feeling of being manipulated and being made fun of and being despised. And the only person that he can label that onto is Anne, because that's that's the only person he never really forgets.
Yeah.
I just think that's so, like, with a character like this, it's so depressing, and it's like painful to see, like when the husband slaps him around, and then when Anne walks in and he's acting like, oh, I don't know what happened. And then like I was wanting, like, desperately for the father to say, like, he hit me.
Yes. Yeah, you want him to say that, but
and it never comes out. And that's when I was like, why doesn't he say it? And it was like, he's already forgotten. Like, he's already forgotten why he
what's
feels
happening.
so distressed.
Yeah.
And then it's, dude, that's so horrible.
It's so sad. That scene is just like It's so sad.
Yeah.
God. But yeah, like I think like it's done so effectively because like the first time you're watching this movie near the beginning, I don't know about you, but like I for sure like thought because I didn't look up a bunch of stuff about this movie before I watched it, so I was like, I thought, what if for a second, I was like, what if there is a conspiracy against like they're conspiring and the plot is going to be like, okay, like this guy, he has maybe some dementia, but it's not like serious, but like these like his daughter and husband actually are scheming against him to like steal his apartment,
Mm-hmm.
like he thinks, and he's gonna figure it out, and like I for a second I thought that maybe that's where the plot was going, but because it makes you believe it so much, but in reality you're just buying into, I was just buying into his perspective, but
Yeah.
and yeah, there's some like with the daughter with Anne, there's some like really sad like moments where he's just like insulting her in front of the carer, and just saying like yeah, just like accusing her of stuff, and he is constantly talking about how Lucy is his favorite daughter, and
Yeah.
there was a really good really nice detail that I only noticed the second viewing, but at some point like he's saying how Lucy used to call him little father, and he or little daddy or something like that,
Yeah.
and
Little Daddy.
he always liked that. And then
Yeah.
when after the abuse scene, when Anne is coming in, to comfort him, she calls him that, when she's trying to comfort him. So I'm like, whoa, and that just made me realize once I noticed it, like, oh, what if maybe she's actually the one that used to call him that and to make him feel good. And it's like, yeah, like what if he's getting them confused? Like what if Anne is really, I mean, because from all we see, like Anne is the one that's taking care of him, and she wants to,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like she really wants to keep taking care of him.
Yeah.
It's really the husband that kind of pressures her into putting him into a nursing home and moving to Paris. um,
Yeah.
so yeah, just like great little details in there.
Yeah. And then yeah, I mean that's an interesting thread because what if in that if that were to be true, what if it was Anne that painted that painting? And like all the
Yeah,
memories he has of Lucy are actually Anne because it seems like Lucy was never really there for him. And it's yeah, it is
yeah,
very
she obviously
intriguing.
left, and yeah, I don't know. True.
Hmm. Oh man.
And
Oh my god. Yeah, now I'm thinking about that.
I really liked that they had a character, the carer, Laura, I think is her real name, that like he really connects with because he thinks she's Lucy, or
Oh,
she reminds him of Lucy, and then later she's switched out with the
the
vague
real.
faced character, yeah, the nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just so upsetting because you're just like, God, this lady with this face keeps coming back, and like he really liked the one that reminded him of Lucy, and it's so
So
sad.
so my hypothesis on that is actually how maybe Lucy looked in real life.
Yeah,
Like maybe that
yeah.
is just how he's like flipping the faces or whatever.
Because I think
And
in the hospital scene when he sees her in the hospital, I was paying more attention this time, and I was like, that does look like that same actress.
yeah.
So yeah, you're probably right. That was her actual face, and just he was getting it confused.
Speaking of which, how do you pronounce her name? Imogen Poots? Im-
Imogen Poots, I guess.
Imogen Poots.
Yeah.
She is very fascinating. Like they're just like how
Oh yeah.
all the characters gave you a certain vibe immediately. Like it's so strange. I don't know what the director did in this film, but 1 second of an actor in character in this film immediately gave you a sense of who they were. And her
Yeah.
character just felt like the absolute purest caregiver, like the generic caregiver that's super nice and kind
Mm-hmm.
and is like trying to adapt to you and like laugh to like support you.
Yeah.
And I love how how their interaction, it was almost like how the father is constantly feeling like belittled by her, but you can tell she's not doing it out of like spite or anything like that. Like she's just trying to be as adaptable as possible.
Yeah,
And
she's trying. Like I kind of took his perspective at some points where I was like, like, yeah, that would be like, from his perspective, that would be really annoying to be talked
Yeah.
to like that, like he's a little child. So I was like, yeah, but you know, she's kind-hearted. Like she's just doing it to be nice. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and that was,
But
yeah,
it's
something about her face, that actress's face is like just very, like, she just seems so nice.
yeah,
Just, yeah,
like I would hire her to take care of my kids. You know, like just off the bat, you see a
yeah,
picture of her. It's like, yeah, she seems like an honest person, and it's interesting because she was in another film that I really loved, the Art of Self Defense. I don't know if you ever watched that.
yeah, yeah. I remember you recommended that to me, and I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I hope her career blossoms a little bit more.
She was in that other, a weird vivarium. Have you ever seen that? Like, where it's like
No.
they're in a suburban hellscape. Her and the guy that plays Mark Zuckerberg in the Facebook movie.
Oh, Jesse Eisenberg.
Yes,
I
yeah.
like him.
Oh yeah, and he's in the Art of Self Defense. Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah. So they're both in. That's another movie they're both in. I don't know if they're in, are they in a relationship or something, but it's kind of weird that they're both in those movies. But
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's one of the great scenes of this movie. I think is that first meeting with Laura and him, because he's so like alive in that scene. And he's such a like charmer. Like you see a different side of him. You know, you kind of see like
Yeah.
the younger version of him, and you know he's making up stuff about how he was a tap dancer and like
Mm-hmm.
it's nice. It's really nice, and he's super charming. But then he you know, he's got her like relaxed and laughing and all that stuff, and then he just subtly like insults her, and she stops laughing, and then he makes the speech that kind of the most, I guess, the meanest speech that he makes in the movie about how he's gonna outlive his daughter, and at her funeral he's gonna like say how she was just a mean-spirited person and was trying to, like, you know, steal his apartment from him and stuff. So and then at the end he's just like, he just wants everyone to fuck off, and it's just like, you know, it's just it's a great just acting scene, because he just goes the whole
Yeah.
spectrum, and it's quite a roller coaster.
Yeah, and I don't remember exactly if it was all one take, but it felt like one take. You
Yeah,
know,
it
like
did.
it had that propulsion energy of, you're like, where is this going? And then when he
Yeah.
snaps, you're like, oh my god. Like there's certain performances that, like, I don't know, it just feels like you're just excited, you know? Like you can
Mm-hmm.
tell they're just eating the whole scene up,
Yep.
and you're just so involved. But what's interesting with that was, like, it's so cool. Like on the second viewing, it feels like it feels like the charisma from that character. Where I feel like a lot of actors, you know, they try to make their character like I think about like Leonardo DiCaprio and like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I feel like because he's an actor in the film, so like every moment of him acting feels like his actor acting. You know, there's like a dual layer of performance, and the performance that he gives with this like fake charisma and excitement and tap dancing feels like it came from the imagination of the father character. You know,
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
it's so surreal that an actor can be at those levels, and then like at his age, like I don't know exactly how old he is, but
He
like
is
he's outperforming every actor that I've seen in like two
he
years.
he's 84, I'm pretty sure.
Oh
Or
my
he will be
god.
84 this year. Like he's 83 or 84. Yeah, when he says his birthday in the movie, like I saw that is his actual birthday, and I realized that
Wow.
he's only 2 years younger than my grandmother, and I was like, "Whoa." Like for
That's
yeah.
like, imagine how much dialogue you had to remember. Like to nail that scene, I don't think of like a fucking 18-year-old could nail that scene, you know, and it's just to think he's doing it nonstop throughout the whole film. Oh man, that's absurd.
Yeah. He's
Wow.
he's he deserved that Oscar. oldest
Yeah.
oldest actor to get an Oscar, I think. Uh,
Wow.
so that's pretty cool.
And then just finishing up the performances, I really liked Olivia Colman's performance. Like I had only seen her in the Favorite,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just a completely distinct, separate kind of performance, very large. And just seeing her in this grounded reality was so interesting. And like I feel like she did a great job anchoring the emotion of like her care about the father, like how you had said previously, like it never feels like she actively wants him out. It just feels, and you can see that in the performance, like when she emotes, it feels like a desperation of
Yeah.
like struggle.
Yeah, because there's like multiple times where, um, like there's several. I was trying to figure out like when is it that she really makes the decision to like send him to the nursing home, but really it's kind of like there's several times that it seems like there's several different scenes. There's one where she's like looking at the doctor's business card that she gave her and is like contemplating calling, and she picks up the phone, and then there's another scene where she's just coming to bed to her husband and like sits down and like I don't know if they say something or not, but she just kind of nods, and it's and then there's a montage of the house just with the boxes packed at night in the middle of the night, which is perfect choice. And you just see the boxes packed and the paintings gone and the rooms are empty, and it's like oof, yeah. It really it shows the how drawn out like the decision was. And there's so many, obviously like the scene where she strangles, where she's imagining
Yeah.
strangling him, and then the perfect like just great moment the second time that they show her going in there putting him to bed, and it's the exact same shot, and it cuts like just at the right moment where you're afraid that it's really going to happen or something. Like I don't know, it just makes you nervous, and then it cuts to another angle and she's just like stroking his face. And I was like, man, that was just perfect. Like just like
Yeah.
perfect editing. Um, and but yeah, and there's a scene where she's like just a really brief things that they didn't have to do, but they thought to do it, which I'm sure aren't in the play, but like because they couldn't, it wouldn't make sense. But like just of her like really briefly like looking out the kitchen window and seeing like a happy couple in the apartment next
Hmm.
door that are just kind of whatever, flirting in the kitchen or whatever. Like, yeah, just like little moments where it's like, oof, it's so sad for her, too. Um, but I still can't, for some reason, I was so in Anthony's perspective that even at the end, I was like, I still felt like she was sort of like a villain in some way
Yeah.
for doing that, for putting him there, and
Yeah.
moving to Paris. Because there's never
Yeah.
like a clear reason for why she does that, except that she just wants to be rid of him. I don't know, or her husband does,
Yeah.
and she'd rather have her husband over him. I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean that's like the the crazy sadness is that like because I've worked in a hospital with a lot of patients that were at this state or worse, and like it's such a like weight on you as an individual. Like when you like get a history with someone and you build that relationship, whether you want to or not, like it happens. It's just like a natural human thing, and then to see them degrade, or to see them degrade to the point to where they're more of a, I don't want to say nuisance, but it's like they're causing you even more stress and anxiety. And then, like, those factors multiply over time and then over people, over work, or whatever in that scenario. So, just I imagine in a personal setting, it's like it's very, like, it can demolish you. Like, just imagine having a bad day at work and then coming home and then arguing with your father for like 3 hours, and now it's midnight. You finally managed to get him to bed. Now it's 1 a.m. You haven't showered or ate, and then you have to go back to work the next day, and then like like that routine is it's just like it's like a wave, like the ocean crashing against a rocky shore. Like what's gonna win, and at some point you just break. And I feel like a lot of people have that breaking point, even in like, I mean, you see it now with like nurses dealing with COVID.
Oof,
Like
yeah,
they've had that, like the largest nurse vacancy in like history,
yeah.
where nurses just are quitting, and then it's like it's just a nonstop beating. And I just think it's interesting because I like how the film has her, like, because like it's all about your perspective as the viewer,
Mm-hmm.
and you're thinking, I wouldn't do that. And it's interesting because that makes you want to improve, but you have to have a character like her that chooses to leave him off, and then you're like, no, like you have to stick through it, like he's your father, and like think about what he's meant to you, like all those types of things. But in the real life scenario of it, like if you were in that situation, it would be insanely grueling
Oh yeah.
and taxing. And then it's just like, and then like if they're at the state to where you are not getting anything in return, like there is no positives, like it doesn't like the father is not even the father that you remember at that point, or they don't remember you, like it's almost like it's like a horrible bad. It's like World War I. There was no like good guy or bad guy. It's just everything
Yeah.
was awful, just nonstop
Yeah.
awfulness.
I think the only thing that I don't think this is really a flaw with the movie, but I'm just thinking like the thing is Anthony Hopkins is so charming in this movie. Like even when he's like angry, he's not really like, you know what I mean? Like he's not intimidating or
Annoying, yeah.
anything, or really that annoying. He's just kind of amusing. So I guess he was so charming that I was like, oh come on, like I would never, like
Yeah,
I would just let him hang out, even if he was just confused every day. I mean, you know what I mean? Also, like he's not. It's not like he's like bedridden and can't use the bathroom by himself. You know, like she doesn't have to like bathe him or shower him. So maybe that was like the only weakness of the movie in some weird
yeah.
way is that they didn't show like the really dark stuff about taking care of an elderly person that
Well,
maybe made
that.
him make it even more believable that she would do that. But
Well, that's when I would argue it's the. I feel like her choice to do it is the current situation, but it's also the future. Like I feel like
oh
her
yeah.
looking down at that window, seeing that couple is like, I have no future. Like I can
Yeah.
never have that experience. And then it's the reality of like every day. And then like I feel like the film kind of plays that out. Like in the beginning, she's like, he's okay, he just needs a helper. And then when he has his big freak out and his big moments, that's when she starts to believe the husband, which is manipulating her, but it's like he's only going to degrade. Like every year it's going to get worse, like, and maybe 5 years from now he won't be able to stand up, and
Yeah.
then am I going to do that? And then like he's not going to be able to use the bathroom. And like when you are in that scenario and you can actively see them like degrading little by little, that's like the stuff you think about at night. And I feel like this film had a bunch of amazing shots where she's just like she's
Yeah.
in the kitchen, and there's like that beautiful like square white light that's kind of like framing her within the kitchen, within the
Yes.
like frame of the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's one of the shots I would argue is just beautiful.
Yeah, that's
And
weird
she's
because
like,
I thought I noticed that one too. The second viewing, I was like, oh, look at that, shot. That's a
yeah, and
painting right there.
it's so simple. And then like she drops the mug, and like you can tell the distress, and it's just, yeah, like I feel like the future is like, if death is the only future, it's like at what point are you just going to stick through it all the way to the end, or if you're deciding at some point I am going to drop them off, it's like why wait, and like what's the point of doing that? And I guess that's where her character is she knows she doesn't want to take care of him when he's that disabled. So it's like, when's a good time? And then like it's never is a good time. There's never going to be
Yeah,
like, oh, now's the time to do it.
I guess so. It makes sense. It makes sense from that perspective. You can't really know
But
it unless you went through it, I
yeah,
suppose.
but I love how the film gives you the empathy and the sympathy of all the characters, to where like you're actively like trying to find the solution. And I feel like that's what's beautiful, or can be beautiful, about a film that makes you want to think different. Is it like this film didn't give you an answer of what to do. It
Yeah,
just showed you a scenario where at the end you feel horrible. Like I don't think anyone can watch this movie and be like, oh, that was a good ending. Like it's like it's like horrible. It's like
yeah, wait a second. Yeah, who would ever? This is a great movie, man. Such an uplifting movie.
yeah. It's like, man, look at those leaves. Oh my
Well,
god.
he gets to go to the park, take a walk in the park. Come on.
Yeah. What's he got to complain about?
Yeah.
Oh
Do
man.
you want to talk about that ending scene yet?
Yeah. We
Oh
can talk
God,
about that.
just a master scene. Like just from the first, like the very beginning of that scene, how it starts on a really close up of his face, and you don't know where he is, and then the just slow reveal that he's in the nursing home, and she's like telling him, very suddenly, just like, okay, yeah, you're gonna stay here. I'm going to Paris, and like, oh, how scary. Like, just a
Hmm.
great, the reveal of the scene was really nice. And like just his interaction with the nurse, which I read that that actress, uh, the bland faced one, I guess they were, Olivia Williams, like she had to be filmed separately from Anthony Hopkins for that scene where he breaks down, because she was afraid that she would have just broken down. She wouldn't have been able to hold it together, you know,
Yeah.
like during his performance, because it's just like that was just so. Even watching it the second time, it's just like God, like it makes you tear up. It's like really hard. Like if you don't feel
Yeah.
anything during that scene, it's like you're out of touch with your emotions, because it's just
Yeah.
so sad. Like him reverting from a father to the child. It's just like he's completely been, and through the whole movie, he's kind of like oscillating between being humble about his position. Like sometimes he admits when he forgets things, and but that's kind of at the very beginning. But then other times, lots of the time, he's trying to assert himself and pretend that he remembers more than he does, and still have that same authority, I guess, that he has all his life. But it's like a battle the whole movie between
Yeah.
him and the disease. And in the end, in the last scene, the disease just totally breaks down his defenses, and he's just a whimpering child. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
it's so sad. Like it's for sure a tragedy. Like just it's a horrible tragedy at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the performance is just apt. Like I'm trying to think of another performance that I think can top that emotionally. Like that's probably one of the best cries ever. And just to see how you said like an old man, like, and he just looks like a child.
Yeah,
Like
his
it's like
body
some
language
Benjamin
is just
Button
perfect.
type shit, like like the way his mouth is quivering and his eyes are like fluttering, and like it just looks like a kid just about to just like little kids when they cry and then they
Yeah.
go into the like scream cry, and you're like, oh shit, don't and you're like you like hug them and you're like, all right, like you're about to freak out. It's like he's at that point, and then the nurse does embrace him because
Yeah.
like, oh, he's about to have a full blown meltdown, and it's just the only other cry that I can find comparable is Florence Pugh in Midsommar in the beginning. Like just the sound of her cry
Oh, yeah.
really got me because it was that really like internal choking. But his like this whimpering is just it's God, like I can't imagine being like the cinematographer, the director, or like anyone on set
Oh, I
just being in
read
that area.
supposedly the whole set was in tears for that scene. Because it's just like I don't know how they couldn't be.
Yeah. Oh man. And then you have for that actress. Can you imagine? Like I've never seen her in any other film, so like I just imagine she's a newer,
Oh
like
no,
a
she's been in a lot of things. I
oh
think I
really?
remember her from like Rushmore. She's in The
Oh.
Sixth Sense. She's in a lot of
Okay.
movies. Yeah.
Well, still, I feel like anyone would be intimidated uh performing next to Anthony Hopkins, but
Yeah.
can you imagine like you're
No.
supposed to be like a hardened nurse who's seen
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. That's why it was such a relief, like when she embraced him, that it was just like, oh man, that was the only warmth, like the only little spark of hope at the end of that movie was like,
Yeah.
you know, there's still like he has access to humanity, a little touch of humanity, that like the kindness that she showed in that situation, that again, like changing her perspective because of this movie. It's like I'm just like, man, like people who do that, who work in nursing homes, like should get paid the big bucks because like that's such an important job. But
Yeah. And it's
like,
very. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, and it's very demanding. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it it's not for the faint of heart, and that brings me back to the daughter. And I was gonna say this was I kind of compare this to like there are some people who should not have children.
Yeah,
You
probably
know,
me.
like they just don't have the patience, they don't have the care, the willing to understand other people's like their perspectives as
Yeah,
children growing up. You know, and I think the same for people with aging parents. Like there
some
are some
people just
people.
shouldn't have parents.
Well, no, some people should not care for their parents.
Yeah.
Like and I'm not saying that the nursing home is the best alternative because there are various, numerous incidents at nursing homes that are probably extremely like I feel like the sequel to this movie
Oh
could
no.
be like a horror in nursing homes, and I
Oh
feel like
god.
there's enough data and news stories about that. But if you can find a place that will take it, like I just it's like two evils, but I'm just it's interesting because like there I just know for a fact there are people who should not care for their parents because one, they probably never cared for their parents, and like two, it's like it takes a lot. Like I feel like for him, even though it is heartbreaking and he's sad and he feels like he lost his home, like at least just by the ending with how this nurse reacted to him, she was very patient in that moment, and that like I don't know if Anne would have dealt with that as
Yeah.
well as the nurse did, you know?
I mean, we see Anne comforting him in a similar way, but it's just like, yeah, if it's not your job, like it's yeah. I mean, would anyone
Yeah.
deal with that if they weren't being paid? If it wasn't their job, I don't know.
Yeah. And then even the people getting paid can't deal with
Can
it
hardly deal with
sometimes,
it.
you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But it
God,
is
there's so.
it's
Oh, go ahead.
oh, it's an interesting problem though. Like I feel like maybe there should be like a better system or a better, like obviously they should be paid more, maybe there should be better training, maybe there should be better facilities, like maybe it should be set up like better, like maybe when you're still continent you can decide, hey, I want to be in a certain type of nursing home, and maybe there should be like grades or like independent third party
Mm-hmm.
inspectors or like investigators. Like I don't think that would be such a hard thing. Like I guess this is kind of like political, but like I feel like government wise, like I don't know if any of the like Nordic countries do it because they're like so advanced
I was just
from
thinking
us
that. Yeah, they. I don't know,
policy
but
wise.
yeah, I would
But just
suspect. But yeah. No, I've
yeah,
actually
like
heard of some. I've heard of some. I don't know if it was South America, like Brazil or somewhere. I don't know where it is, but like a different type of retirement community, you know, where it's about the community and it's like, I mean, honestly, most of it is just the aesthetics because I don't know if you've ever been, spent time in a nursing home, but it's like it's the aesthetics that just make it so miserable. The
yeah,
colors at which they show in this movie, just like the colors and the hospital like nature of the building, and the lack of central areas that people can meet and outdoor areas. I mean, a lot of it I feel like is just like architecture and and stuff like that, psychology,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's a hard problem because it is like everyone thinks that the cliche is like, oh yeah, have kids because they'll take care of you when you get, so that you have someone to take care of you when you get old, but
yeah,
that doesn't happen most of the time. Most of the
yeah,
time you're going to end up in a nursing home, like this. So
yeah,
it's sad, but it's a weird, we don't live in tribes anymore, so it's like, yeah, you've got your own life, you know
yeah.
that's why these
And then
facilities exist.
yeah, and it's a lot of them, man. Like I feel like COVID has really amplified that a lot. Like when it first started, and still, but especially when it first started, like I just remember like the panic that a lot of people had, like trying to get their parents out of nursing homes, or
Yeah,
like, are they gonna stay? Are they gonna take them out? And then like imagine, well, how a lot of nursing homes just got hit with that, and just imagine like the deaths
it's
and the
horrible.
toll that took. Yeah, and it's Yeah, it's just it's crazy. And then like on a other cynical like free market or whatever, it's like it nursing homes is it's a business, you
Yeah.
know. And that's where I'm thinking like maybe policy wise, it's like, well, like I feel like a business should kind of end when it takes advantage of a human life or a human uh not condition but yeah, the condition of which humans are living. If a business interest deals with that, then maybe that's not
Like just
interesting.
healthcare
Especially
mainly.
when the most profitable thing would be how you're saying, like everything looks clinical because it's cheap. The colors are bland because that's cheap paint. You know,
Right.
the buildings, the rooms are small because you want to maximize the amount of units.
Right.
No central
Yeah.
area because you don't want to pay an architect. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it all kind of stems from, I think, the top, which is why have a, like, what's the incentive? And if the incentive is money, then you're never going to get a good result when it deals
It's
with human
yeah.
life.
It spoils everything. Yeah. I totally am on the same page. Anything having to do with healthcare, it's like, yeah, you don't want to mix that and maximizing profit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh my
God.
god.
There's so many good lines in that last scene, like especially I don't know, did you think this was a little bit too um obvious or like metaphorical, his line about like, oh, I feel like I'm losing all my leaves, you know? And then obviously the last shot panning over to the trees, and they're all, but they're, it's not the fall, you know, like I was thinking, okay, if it was more obvious, if they were being more obvious or less thoughtful, like it would have taken place in the fall, and you would have panned over and it would have just been like trees, you know, with their leaves falling. But it seemed like it was during the summer or something, and it was just, you
Mm-hmm.
know, just some nice full green trees. And I don't know if that has a deeper meaning or if it was just the shooting schedule, but you know, I don't know. I just thought that the last shot, the first at first I thought it was kind of lazy. Like I thought, I don't know, it just feels like a kind of a lazy ending, like, oh, let's just pan over to the window. But then I don't know, the more I thought about it, it's it feels deeper in a way that I like can't put into words. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know if you have
So,
any insight into that, but
yes. So beginning with his line, like this whole film, I haven't mentioned this earlier, but I feel like this whole film is so wonderful because of the Britishness of it. And like that line doesn't come off as cheesy when like in the beginning when he's like, oh, I forgot what he says. You're gonna, like, he says some reference to like a war phrase, like you're gonna leave me off or something. Like the way he speaks is very like British, and it just feels like I don't know any Britons or I've never been to Britain, but just like from the fantasy British works that I've read, mainly like from Tolkien and stuff. Like they from that and some interviews, like I love the way they use metaphors as like responses, and it's like a very smart, witty response is a metaphor that is an answer. Like if you
mm-hmm.
visualize the metaphor, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
so that made sense to me, and it felt perfect, and it felt poetic, and it did feel a little bit written, but it felt like I wanted to be hit with something that was written. Like I wanted to be hit with, you know, like, and it felt like maybe his character had been thinking about that for so long, and it's like, and it's in like, you know, sometimes a moment of like a genius line will come to you. Like it hasn't happened to me yet, but I can imagine, like, you know, like maybe you say something and then someone's like, "Damn, that is the best way you could have ever said that." Like that is very smart and intellectual or whatever. So I feel like maybe he just had that moment. But the other thing with the ending shot, I thought that was the perfect ending shot. Like I can't imagine it ending in any other way. And it references two parts. Well, two things. Well, the first part is the nurse says to comfort him. You know, it's a beautiful summer day. We can go
Yeah.
outside. You know, it's warm, and we'll take a walk around the park, and then you know take your nap or whatever. We go back out. So it's like setting up that it's a beautiful day. And
Mm-hmm.
then earlier in the film, he talks about how the world keeps moving no matter what, and he says it like in an argument
Oh
with
yeah.
Anne. Um, and I feel like the whole theme of the film is time makes no sense. Like in the perspective we are in, time has no like tangibility. and you can't grasp it. And like again with the watch, and we can talk about that later. But just going out into a beautiful summer day, and like this man is having right now is probably the worst moment of his life ever. and and then the camera just pans and you see the world is still living, you know, the
Mm.
trees are still blossoming and it's beautiful and it's vibrant and it's a gorgeous summer day and like people are living their lives. And then in this small room in this small housing community in London, in Britain, in the world, there's like this one man who is just he can't, he doesn't even like, he even says like who am I exactly,
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah.
like it's just it's pure despair. Yet, you know, and back to his previous line is like the world continues, and like and that's kind of the choice the daughter made, is like I have to live my life, and you know I have to make this choice if it's correct or incorrect. But I just feel like that kind of little metaphor ties it all in, because I didn't even feel like it was a response to the I feel like a tree with no leaves. I just felt like it was, and then in a weird way, because it lingered on the trees and the leaves, and it's like just the most beautiful, vibrant green, and it felt like that was that was for us, the viewer. Like
Mm.
we finally finished the perspective that we were in, and now we are looking outside at the world, and it's like appreciate this time. Like it
Yeah.
almost felt like it was like a subconscious exhale, and it was like now you can breathe, and like
Yeah.
and it felt like you were outside again, and it's like letting us exit his perspective and back to the real world, and then we go back into our internal perspective, and it felt very like meditative. Like I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
like I love films that cut to black and then it's just silent and you don't see the credits immediately, you know, like you need that moment to like kind of process what you just experienced, and I feel like this scene did it, but then it did it with a visual thing that was the complete opposite of everything we've seen. Like I don't even think we really saw many trees before that moment. Like
No.
every moment had architecture and like stuff in it, and that shot was just two trees. And I don't know, I thought it was beautiful because everything is like unorganic and man-made, and then we end with organic life.
Yeah. God, I like what you say. It's, yeah, you need the meditative moment. It's also like you said, like kind of a nice transition for the audience. But then
Yeah.
I hate to go to be like on the dark side of it, but it also is very, if you think about it, like it's really cold. Like it's really, yeah, like cold is the best word. Ironically, because it's like, yeah, like even all of his suffering, like it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah.
Like in the grand scheme of things, like you said, like the world keeps going, and like wow,
Mm-hmm.
look at the beautiful day outside. It's like, yeah, it's kind of, it makes it almost more scary or tragic if you think about it in a certain
Yeah.
perspective, but you can see it from the other perspective too. It's like two sides of the same coin. It is very like zen or something. There's something about that. So I guess it was probably the best choice they could make for like the ending, because
Yeah.
it shows both sides of it, both perspectives. Oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, and both of them work because it is, yeah, like it is what is, yeah, like the it's he's just another guy, and we're
Yeah,
all just
man.
another
And
guy
the
or girl, and then the world is like the only thing that seemingly is eternal is everything outside of us.
just nature, yeah, just
Yeah, the ethereal being of non-sentience,
the
you know.
wind, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That just made me appreciate that even more.
Yeah. I think it's a bit like I was trying to like I'm trying to think like what how could you end it in it, like if it would have cut immediately to black, it would have just
Felt
been
weird.
like
Yeah.
that yeah, that would have been that's the answer, is complete depression. But like doing that shot outside, seeing the trees, I feel like everyone got a different perspective like watching that for the 5 seconds that it was shown.
Yeah. I was thinking of like what a lesser movie would have done. I was imagining the second time viewing like a lesser movie would have gotten very fancy with the editing and would have like there would be like a zoom in into his eye, and we would see like a fast montage of his life, and
Yeah.
like something really cheesy, uh or there'd be something stupid, like a stupid cliffhanger, like him laying down in bed and like closing his eyes, and we're supposed to wonder like, oh, did he die, or is he just napping? Yeah, like there's so many. That's what I was talking about earlier, like in the non-spoilers. Like there's so many ways that this movie, or even the thing that I imagined at first, like, oh, this is going to be like a thing where, yeah, they're making him think he's got dementia, but he really doesn't. He's going to figure it out, and there's going to be this whole, drama, whatever. Like, yeah, there's so many ways this movie could have like been lesser, but it didn't. It
Yeah.
transcended all of those alternatives.
And it's such a testament to this first time direct, like it's staggering. Like I mean, I think this would be like, I know there's like a list on like Letterboxd, it's like the best directorial debuts, and obviously like Citizen Kane is up there. Like I would put this in like that kind of category of like fuck, like you come out of the gate so strong with something so succinct and like
Yeah,
it's needle point fine. Like it's just such a precise execution of one concept, one idea, one perspective, one character. See, like basically one location,
I
and to
really,
do
I
it all in an
yeah,
hour and a half is absurd.
I really hope he keeps making movies. Like, I don't know if this was like a one-off thing because he just
Oh
really
no! So
he wanted to try.
He's adapting his next play, and guess what the title is?
Uh, the mother.
The Son.
Okay, yeah, I know that. I cheated a little bit because I looked up his plays before and I saw that he had all of those, like, and then there
Oh
was one
yeah.
something about the wind. I read
Oh
someone's review of his plays, and how the negative things they said about them were that they're all very similar. Like his newest play is very similar to this one. Like they all deal with family, mental ill, mental illness, and like uh, kind of like, what do you call it? Just a plot that's very mixed up, and you're trying to
yeah.
figure out. They said that this one reviewer cited that as like a downside of his newest play, was that you're so caught up in trying to figure out the actual timeline that there's not enough focus on the characters. So I almost
Yeah.
feel like, I hope if he does another movie, that it just seems like he's going to have to find really good actors again, which I don't know. Like the really interesting thing about this one was that apparently, like, he just envisioned Anthony Hopkins as this character. That's why when he was writing the screenplay, or when he started thinking about it, like it was meant for Anthony Hopkins. And apparently he like wrote a letter to Anthony Hopkins and like sent him the script, and was like waiting for him to respond before they even moved forward with production, because like he wasn't even going to do it. Like I think he said that, like, if Anthony Hopkins hadn't responded or hadn't wanted to do it, then it would have been a French movie. It would have been a French film, and he would have just picked some random French actor. But the fact that Anthony
Wow.
Hopkins picked it, like it was like his dream. Like it was like
Wow.
exactly what he wanted. Like he wrote the script for Anthony Hopkins, and so I thought that was really neat. But I'm just thinking, like, if he does another one, it's gonna have to be just that perfect actor, like Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
I don't know
Well,
who the
it's
mother's
gonna
gonna be.
be Hugh Jackman,
Oh yeah.
Laura Dern, and Vanessa Kirby.
Ooh, interesting.
I think that's a good trio. I like Hugh Jackman, and he's been doing a lot of theater lately. So
I I
he's
I trust Laura Dern too, for sure.
yeah,
So is she
that's
gonna be the
exciting.
mother?
It doesn't say.
Or wait,
So
wait, you
this
said the son. It's the son.
Yeah, it's called The Sun. It has a synopsis, and it's basically about. Here, I'll just read. The Sun focuses on Peter as his busy life with new partner Emma and their baby is thrown into disarray when his ex-wife Kate turns up with their teenage son Nicholas. The young man is troubled, distant, and angry, playing truant from school for months. Peter strives to be a better father, searching to help his son with those intimate and instinctive moments of family happiness. But the weight of Nicholas' condition sets the family on a dangerous course. See, the key word there is condition.
Yeah. So I mean,
Interesting.
yeah, mental illness is for sure a thing that he
Oh
likes to write
man.
about. But that sounds different enough that
Yeah.
it'll set it apart from this one. But
Well, I think with plays, I don't watch plays, but I think it would be way more repetitive and annoying. Right? Like I mean, how many like Christopher Nolan's made like 10 films now, and it's like he's doing the same time dilation, and like I still get a little kick out of it. I feel like I could watch 5 more of these movies and still be amazed by the technique. And
yeah.
like how you said, like if you have the right performers, because like even in this film, like all the performers added a special flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can get that out of Laura Dern or Vanessa Kirby or Hugh Jackman, like it will. I don't know. I just feel like this, like if that's his style, like if every film feels like this film, like it'd be like I don't think I would ever tire of it. Like I don't tire of Wes Anderson, even though every Wes
Yeah.
Anderson film feels exactly like a Wes Anderson film.
I guess you're right. Yeah, I can see it. And yeah, he should just stop writing plays, stop writing novels, just
On
focus
films.
on movies. Just make a bunch of really great movies because
And what's
he's got
insane
the spark.
and what's insane is that this, like, there is no way this film was extreme. Like I just imagine like 95% of the budget went to Anthony Hopkins
Yeah.
to pay him, but like I feel like Anthony Hopkins' payout was less than the entire film budget. Like that's how, and I don't say that in a negative way, but it's like it's amazing how you can write something so slim. Like I imagine, like there was a lot to spend on like set design and costuming and all that stuff, but like in comparison to like Annette or something, like I feel like there's
Oh
this
yeah.
film probably came way, like this had such a slim budget, and then to get an Oscar,
Yeah.
like oh man, like that's an easy money machine, I think.
That's true. Yeah, from like this whatever the producer perspective. Yeah. Yeah. Oh god, you mentioned the sets and I can't believe I haven't mentioned or we haven't talked about just how genius it was, like that idea, because what I read from the play, like what they did was it's just, and it sounds really cheesy and like it wouldn't work, like as the play went on they just removed stuff from the stage, from the set. So like by the end of the play it's just a bare stage with the actors on it, and it's like, oh yeah, you're not supposed to notice it first, and then you start noticing it, and whatever, it's supposed to represent his mental decline. But like I just feel like god, the way they
Oh
did it in this movie is so much better. Like just the idea of like using the same structure, building,
yeah,
and it representing all the settings, and as the movie goes on little things are changing, little paintings go missing and little decorations are moved and chairs are different and beds are different, and it's like it just works so well that even the second time viewing it's really hard to notice, like.
yeah,
And what's even more impressive, what's interesting, like the cinematography, they have a lot of shots that are just really static shots, and they do the exact same shot, like the kitchen for instance. Like every time you see the kitchen you see the same shot of it, like the same angle, just straight on, you're just looking right at the kitchen for a while, like it's not even fast, it's for a while, and still for some reason, like I didn't, like, you don't notice it, like it's not cheesy the way things are changing, but like by the end of the movie like that kitchen is totally different, like cabinets are
yeah,
different, everything's different about that kitchen. And I
yeah,
guess it has that subconscious effect in your brain, but it just works so well. I don't know. I don't know.
yeah.
Like I don't know why it just works so well. It's a perfect balance of being too subtle and too obvious with it. Just a perfect balance.
But yeah, I agree with the point you were talking about. Like, I don't understand how this would, because like even the character, like switching characters, I don't think that would work in a play. Like having a different actor
Yeah, because you would
be
just
a
think,
different
oh,
character.
it's just a different actor that came in from backstage. Yeah, it just wouldn't have the same effect. Yeah.
They would come in. I am the same actor, but a different performer.
All the audience is like, ooh.
Ooh, they're all like snapping their fingers.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh my god. But yeah, like what are some other, I guess, moments that we haven't talked about yet that we
Uh
should bring up?
there's a lot of fun little like metaphors for the mental decline that they put in that, I mean, that be somewhere a little like, okay, but then like the glass, like her dropping the glass and then picking up the pieces and throwing it away.
Mm-hmm.
The CD skipping when he's listening to it. Like there's one shot of a faucet and the water dripping out, and it just kind of gets slower and slower and then stops.
Yeah.
There's one that I really liked visually was the sculpture outside of the nursing home, like
Oh yeah,
of
the
the
face.
head, the face without the brain part. And
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, that's a great visual touch, like on the theme. And I can't imagine that would actually be outside of a nursing home. I have to believe that's a different type of building there.
Oh yeah.
Because that'd be very depressing to have outside of a
Can
nursing
you
home.
imagine?
but in the movie, it adds a nice touch.
Oh man. Oh, it's speaking about the song that he listens to. That is such a wonderful song. Like they used it like 3 times in the film. Like when she was on hold, it played that song. But I don't think that song was the song on hold. And then like in the intro they played it when he was first listening, and then that third time when it skips.
Okay, you know what? I think that's the song that I was reading trivia or whatever about the movie, and they mentioned like a song in the movie, which besides the score, I didn't remember any specific song, but it's probably the one you're talking about. That like
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Hopkins wanted that song to be in the movie for some reason because he always wished that
Wow.
that song would be in a movie that he was in, because I don't know, he told the director some story about how when he was young he went to like an opera or a performance or whatever, and that song was played, and then he went back to his studio or whatever, and he had a piano, and he spent like 3 days trying to figure out the melody of the song because he was just so obsessed with that song for some reason, and he drove
Yeah.
everyone crazy, and he loved that song for some reason,
Wow.
so he wanted that song to be in the movie. And
And it worked perfectly. Like it's such a complex, emotive song, and when it plays, I feel like I can feel his character thinking. Cuz and that's like another aspect we kind of haven't really talked about, but he is a very like the character, the father in the film is a very intelligent man, which is so interesting in this context because like I feel like most films that deal with older characters or aging characters or like disabled characters or suffering from a mental illness specifically, like they're always played as if they're not smart or intelligent or they are not planning things. And like the whole film I can feel his character constantly making decisions on the fly to get something out of it. Like he's a planner. Like he loves like coming up with ideas and executing them, and then just this illness is what's really messing him up, and it feels even more tragic because of that, because he's so intelligent, like the way he
yeah,
fakes a performance for the lady just to twist the knife into her, and then like just all these and then it feels even worse when he's trying to figure out what's happening, and then he's like, "You're not Anne," and then she's like, "I'm standing right here," and then he has to make that split decision of like, oh, what do I do? Like he has to like reevaluate what his plan was or his
yeah.
tactics, and
There's a
it's
lot
and
of
it's
little moments like that where like when he sees the husband in the kitchen and he doesn't recognize him, and he
yeah,
asks, so he slyly asks like, oh, do we have guests tonight? And she's like, no, why? But he doesn't clarify. He's just like, oh, just wondering. So because
yeah,
he doesn't want to admit, but yeah. And he mentions that he was an engineer, or someone does, or his daughter does in the movie. So it's
yeah,
like, yeah, I mean, obviously he was an intelligent guy in his time, and yeah, it makes it even more. Well, I mean, I get that's a little elitist to say, but like, it makes it tragic because it's like, yeah, he's like such a loss.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I just imagine like if I were to go through it, and I imagine you would think the same if you going through it. Like I feel like both of us are the type of thinkers that would, like, if we
Oh,
suddenly discover we're in that loop,
I would
it
go.
would
I
be
would go Memento.
yeah, it would be an eternal fight against it. Like
Oh,
and
I'd
that's
be I'd be writing it. It would look like Yeah, it would. There'd be every wall would have like write notes, plastered all
Yeah.
over it. Like, this is your name, this is your daughter's name, this is your daughter's husband. Like, every morning I would wake up, there'd be like a little note, like, read this document, and there'd be like I'd have a document. Oh, I've already thought, like, I for sure like thought about that. Like, okay, if this started happening to me, like, what would I do? But I feel like
Yeah.
when you're in that situation, you're so confused, and it happens so
Yeah.
gradually. It's like, boiling a frog. You just slowly just turn up the temperature, and you don't know that it's happening, and you don't have time to plan. So
Yeah.
how do you deal with it? Yeah.
Oh man. Well, this is something I wasn't sure I should bring up or not, but I'm gonna bring it up because I think it's interesting. So, when I have smoked marijuana before,
Yeah.
I have like a very weird effect, and every time I tell people what I feel, everyone's like, "Oh, I don't know, that doesn't make sense." But what's very shocking is that watching this film, when I used to get high or whatever, the effects that I had is exactly what Anthony Hopkins' character experiences. Like it's like to the T. Like I remember the last time I ate an edible, I
Yeah.
was washing dishes, and then I like blinked, and then I was like kneeling beside someone talking to them, and then I was like, man, I'm about to wash dishes. And then I saw myself go wash dishes. But
Yeah.
I started washing dishes. Like, that's the first thing I did. And then I went to sit down. But then when I was sitting down, I went back to wash dishes, but I didn't go back to wash dishes. I relived the washing dishes. And then I cut after that into like going to the bathroom to pee or something. And then I would cut back to my room. And I'm like, man, I need a pee. So there was like a chunk missing of me walking,
Yeah.
kneeling by someone to my room, then to go to pee. Like, and it's horrifying. Like that, and
Yeah.
that's like why I've never enjoyed like getting high on marijuana or anything like that, or anything else. Like I'm I'm just like a drinker, but like that experience, and then I've experienced it like a couple times, and it's just like absolutely horrifying, and it stresses me out, and it gives me like anxiety, and like I have like panic attacks and stuff because I'm like, what am I gonna do or whatever, and it's just so crazy, like seeing this film and being like, oh my god, if I get dementia, like that's gonna be eternal, like oh
Yeah.
no.
Oh man, that is
So
a good metaphor. Because, yeah, no, I felt the exact same thing, and edibles will do that, where it's
oh,
just
so
like,
so that feeling, you have that feeling as well, where it's like the time.
yeah, yeah, the time
Oh, okay.
dilation. Oh yeah, I feel like that's probably pretty normal. I don't know who you're talking
Oh,
to
okay.
that are like, oh yeah, that's weird. No, like,
Yeah.
that's like, yeah, because I same thing. Like, yeah, it's where you're like, you're talking, but you feel like you've already heard yourself talking while you're talking, and then someone's responding, but it's like, it's just
Yeah.
really weird. You feel like you've already heard it,
Yeah.
or you hear it twice. Yeah, it's just, or like you
Mhm.
said, that just you're walking somewhere, and then you're already there, and then
Yeah.
you're like, whoa, like, I was just walking here, but then other times feel like it's in slow motion. So it's like, well, yeah, it's just like the fact that the brain can do that so easily
Mhm.
is frightening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, like,
Yeah.
imagine everyone listening who's taken edibles and has experienced that for a few hours. It's like, imagine if the rest of your life was like that.
Yeah.
Where it's horrifying. Yeah. Or like, you see someone, and you're not sure if you recognize them or not for like a split second.
Yeah.
It's like, or you look at yourself in the mirror, which they didn't really do that in the movie, but I think
Yeah.
that's another symptom of dementia. You don't even recognize, well, he has that one line, but like, you don't even recognize yourself sometimes. So it's like, yeah, that would be, it's horrifying.
Yeah.
This is,
What?
I didn't say this in the non-spoilers, but yeah, like, this is probably the best horror movie of 2021, or for a long
Oh,
time, that I've
yeah.
seen. Like, for sure, if you
Yeah.
really think about it, it's
Yeah.
the most, it's the scariest movie that I've seen in a while.
Yeah. Oh man. So imagine watching this film on edibles.
Oh, don't even put that idea out into the world. don't, yeah,
If
don't try this at home. Yeah, God.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. So yeah, because like everyone else I told, they were like, "No, I just have very intelligent thoughts," and I'm like, "What the
No,
fuck?"
and I know, I've talked to other people that have had that's exact same symptoms. So I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure it's pretty universal. I think.
Okay. 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 Wow. Man,
Oh yeah.
that's
Oh God. Have you ever walked up a stairwell while while really high on edibles? Is like the last time I
no.
did. God, the last time I did that, and it's like I was like for like for like 5 to 10 seconds, I was horrified that I was like, what if I just this stairwell just keeps going? like
Yeah.
I really felt like okay, this stairwell is I have been walking up these stairs for way too long. Like this is a 2-story building. Like this should not be happening. Oh God.
Oh man.
Time is scary. Time is
Yeah.
scary.
Yep. Oh, and I can't remember if I brought this up before, but the fact that he is a first-time director and how minimal he made this. Like I was watching it and I was thinking, I am so glad I didn't direct this because I would have done the face swaps, like the character swaps way too many times. I
Yeah.
would have I would have pushed the editing way too far. Like there was moments where I'm like, "Oh, it's going to go crazy." In the
Mm-hmm.
end is going to be like 20 different characters and they're all fake. But it's like there's just so much restraint and I like
Yep.
I don't even think I could have the restraint to have as precise of a film as this. Like this is like it's crazy.
Yeah, for some reason, like the most like out there scene of the movie when he hears his daughter, like I guess when he hears Lucy's voice in the middle of the
Yeah.
night, and he wakes up, he goes into his closet, it turns into the hospital, and she has that memory of seeing her in the hospital. It's like I think it was that scene when he's walking down the hospital hallway that I just sensed that I was like, oh, like this movie could go downhill from here because
Yeah.
it could start getting crazier and crazier and more disorienting, you know, but it didn't. And yeah, it's like so much respect for that it didn't turn into something else.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh man. So is there any other big moments that you want to talk about?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I
Yeah.
think that's it.
Oh man. All right. Well, that man, there was something I wanted to say and I
Uh
can't
oh.
remember now.
Yeah, you don't want to go after the
Oh no.
episode like, oh God, I forgot to mention.
Oh man. No, I guess I won't remember. I guess God, it was something with. Oh, okay, yeah, I got it. Oh my God, thank God. Okay, I would have been pissed. So I brought up the marijuana thing because I think it was like a month ago, which is ironic. It came out of like a UK study, like whatever college is over there, university. They did a study on THC, and they found like direct links from THC to early onset like dementia or something.
Oh God.
And I was like, oh my, like I remember reading that and I was like, oh, that makes sense because like the time dilation, and I don't like that. And then like watching this film, it clued me back in and I was like, holy shit, I'm not doing that no more.
Oh no! Imagine it like unlocks that part of your whatever part of your brain is capable of that. You know, like it just kind of unlocks that.
Well, I mean, it must, like if you think about how our brains work, they're like habitual
Yeah.
machines. And it's like once you tread down a certain path, like your neural pathways strengthen the more you go down
Mm-hmm.
that route. And if
You don't want to start start tapping on that pathway. You put some cracks in that, and then by the time you're 60, it just breaks.
Oh man, that would be horrifying if like yeah, like if there's a big stoner age because of like all the legalization, and then in like 20 years there's like a huge dementia, pool, like cuz that kind of happens, like you have like something happens and then you have the response, 10 20 years later.
I've always found it. I mean, it's just kind of off topic, but I've always found it like I've always thought about that. Like certain people, like people that are very famous for drugs, like Terrence McKenna had a brain tumor, and it's like, okay, was that because of all the insane drugs that he took over his life, or is it just a coincidence?
Yeah.
Ram Dass had a stroke, another brain related, horrible thing to happen to you, and it's like, okay, was that because of all of the LSD or not? And it's like, yeah, it makes you think, but I
Yep.
didn't know this episode was going to turn into a anti-drug PSA at the end. But
Well,
it makes sense.
it's more like, be aware. You know? I mean, I
The
feel like
brain is a
anything.
fragile thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, do you really want to fuck with that and then being stuck in this eternal loop? I would not. Dude, like, you could just show this movie as, like, the effects of marijuana.
Just yeah, you could like, oh my god, they could just like film a few flashback scenes, that show just they could do that completely, just like get younger characters and just some flashback scenes of Anthony Hopkins' younger
Just being.
self smoking it up. Yeah. Oh my god.
Oh, man. That makes me think, like, I wonder if he was ever in a stoner comedy and you could just, like,
Oh
deep
my
fake
god.
that character in.
You could totally change. Yeah.
Oh, one last thing. Do you think there's a way to edit, like, recut the film in a chronological way?
No, because that's kind of what I was like trying to do this second time with my notes, and then when I was rereading through them, I was trying to put them in order, but then I realized certain ones, it just doesn't make sense. Like it's impossible. Like I think it's not meant to be like dissected that literally. I think I just don't think there's a way to put it in an order that would make sense. But I think it's kind of on purpose. Like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it worked way better that way.
yeah.
Well, all right. That concludes our discussion of The Father. Thank you for listening to this episode of Cineverm. We would be grateful and humbled if you could leave us a review with your thoughts or comments, and if you could share us with your friends or family, as that helps us in our journey to spread the love of cinema. Speaking of which, if you listen to the spoilers, you've seen the whole film, you should also share the film with friends and family, as I think how we said earlier. Yeah, like it's worth. I feel like it's one of those, like, how there's always like those films that's like, it's usually like about a political thing or environmental or racial or social or whatever. Like, I feel like this fits in that category, and it's like often overlooked, like the medical issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will see you next time.
See ya. Don't do drugs.
Cinema.